Welcome to Elderly Care. I'm Dr. Winston, a geriatric physician with over 30 years of experience walking alongside older adults through the many seasons of aging. In this space, we speak gently but honestly about the challenges, changes, and quiet strengths that come with growing older. Today's topic may reflect something you've felt but never said out loud. Why you might stop visiting people after 70. Stay with me, because the reasons may surprise you, and they may bring comfort too. It begins subtly. One day, you find yourself hesitating before making a visit. Not because you don't care, not because you don't want to see your loved ones, but something inside you, gentle, almost imperceptible, holds you back. You sit quietly on the edge of your bed, slippers nestled beneath your feet, and you wonder, when did going to see people start feeling like a chore? For many of us who have reached the autumn of life, especially those of us in our 70s and beyond, this quiet change doesn't arrive all at once. It's gradual, and it often goes unnoticed until one day we realize that we've stopped making the rounds. We've stopped visiting, stopped dropping in, stopped staying for tea or lingering for conversations that once warmed our hearts. And we begin to ask ourselves, is it just me, or is there something deeper going on? But this story isn't just about growing older. It's about understanding what changes inside us as the years pass. It's about the emotional terrain we begin to walk once we hit that sacred milestone of 70. And it's about discovering that we are not alone in this shift. In fact, there are 6 deeply human, eye-opening truths behind why many older adults begin to withdraw from social visits. Truths backed by research, whispered by experience, and felt in the quiet spaces of our hearts. Let's take a walk through these truths together. Not in a rush, not to fix anything, but to understand. Because sometimes understanding is the beginning of healing. And healing doesn't always mean returning to who we were. Sometimes it simply means learning how to live well with who we are now. Truth 1. The body no longer moves as it used to. 1. The body no longer moves as it used to. At 70, the body becomes a quieter place, a place that reminds us of its presence in new ways. The knees creak when we rise from a chair. The breath, once unnoticed, now makes itself known as we climb steps or walk from the car to a front door. For many older adults, the idea of visiting someone means more than just a conversation. It means preparing the body for movement, navigating unfamiliar homes, bending to remove shoes, sitting on chairs that may be too low or too firm, and making sure we can find the bathroom quickly if we need it. These things were once simple. Now they come with planning and sometimes even pain. And so we hesitate, not because we don't value the company, but because we know our bodies are no longer the willing companions they once were. A short visit can mean a day of discomfort. And sometimes we choose stillness instead. Not because we are lazy or antisocial, but because we are listening to the messages our bodies are quietly sending. Truth 2. 2. Energy becomes a precious commodity. Beyond the aches and physical changes, there is something more subtle and more surprising that begins to shift. Energy. Not just physical energy, but emotional energy too. It takes effort to dress, to drive, to talk, to engage. And when you're older, every ounce of energy begins to matter more. It becomes a resource you spend carefully. Dr. Louise Aronson, a geriatrician and author, once said that one of the greatest misunderstandings about aging is the belief that people become uninterested in the world. In truth, older adults often still care deeply, but they must become selective in how they use their energy. Visiting someone, even someone beloved, can take more than we realize. And when the energy isn't there, or when it's needed elsewhere, perhaps for a medical appointment, or simply to rest, we make a quiet choice not to go. Truth 3. The social landscape has shifted. There's an ache, that many people over 70 know but rarely speak of. The empty seat at the table, the name you no longer call, the friend who moved away, the spouse who passed. Over time, our social worlds become smaller, not because we've pushed people away, but because time has taken them. And with that shrinking comes silence. The people we used to visit may no longer be around. The gatherings we once loved are no longer held. The family members we once saw every weekend are now raising children, juggling careers, and living lives too full to accommodate regular visits. It's no one's fault. It's just life. But that shift can be felt deeply. For many elders, the act of not visiting is not a withdrawal, but a response to an absence. And sometimes we pull back not because we want to, but because we don't want to feel the loneliness that comes from being the oldest person in the room, or from noticing that the faces around us have changed beyond recognition. Truth 4. Emotional vulnerability increases. With age comes wisdom. Yes, but also tenderness. The heart grows more sensitive. Words hit differently. Offhand comments linger longer. And for many people in their 70s, the ability to shield oneself from emotional discomfort isn't what it used to be. Visiting people means opening oneself to a variety of interactions, and not all of them are gentle. Sometimes we feel talked over. Sometimes we feel forgotten. Sometimes the conversations revolve around things we no longer understand. Technology, trends, or family dynamics we're no longer part of. And sometimes we walk away from a visit feeling more alone than we did before we arrived. Rather than subject ourselves to those feelings, we quietly begin to opt out. We seek the safety of solitude, not because we don't love others, but because we are learning to protect our emotional peace. And that is not a weakness. It is a form of quiet strength. Truth 5. The fear of being a burden grows. This is one of the most profound truths, and perhaps the least spoken of. As we age, we begin to carry an invisible weight, the fear of being in the way. We don't want to be the reason someone has to clean the house or rearrange their schedule. We don't want to ask for help with the stairs or with finding the right chair. We don't want to seem needy. And so, even when we are warmly invited, even when our presence is truly wanted, we sometimes decline. We say we're tired. We say it's too far. But beneath those words is often a deeper truth. We don't want to impose. We want to be remembered for our independence, not our inconvenience. This fear, though often unfounded, is very real, and it shapes many of the decisions older adults make about visiting others. If only younger generations understood how deeply rooted this feeling is, they might extend not just invitations, but reassurances. Because more than anything, we need to be reminded that our presence is a gift, not a burden. Truth 6. Priorities begin to shift inward. Finally, there is a beautiful, if quiet, shift that happens around this age. The realization that time is finite. And with that realization comes a new kind of clarity. We begin to prioritize differently. We no longer say yes to everything. We begin to choose solitude, reflection, nature, reading, prayer, or simply resting on a quiet porch over small talk and social obligation. It's not about isolation, it's about intention. At 70 and beyond, many people begin to seek deeper meaning in their days. They want conversations that matter, moments that nourish the soul. And when visiting others feels shallow or draining, they choose instead to stay home and tend to the garden of their own spirit. There is great dignity in this. It is not a retreat. It is a return to oneself, to the things that truly matter, to the people who truly care. And so, when you or someone you know stops visiting as often, it's worth asking, is this a sign of loneliness or of peace? Is it a loss or a shift toward a more meaningful way of living? But even as these 6 truths unfold, we must remember this. Pulling back does not mean giving up. Withdrawing is not the same as surrender. For many people over 70, these decisions are made quietly, thoughtfully, and with dignity. Still, even in the safety of solitude, the human heart never stops longing for connection. It is a paradox of aging, wanting peace, but also needing people, wanting quiet, but missing the voices, wanting rest, but still feeling the deep, enduring need to be seen. So the question becomes, how do we hold both? How do we honor our changing needs while still staying meaningfully connected? How do we allow ourselves the grace to say no when needed, without fully closing the door to the world outside? The answer, perhaps, lies in balance, and in small intentional shifts in how we approach connection after 70. We begin by redefining what visiting means. Maybe it's no longer about showing up for large family gatherings or long social afternoons. Maybe it's about shorter visits, simpler settings, softer expectations, a phone call that feels genuine, a 15-minute tea with a close friend rather than a crowded room full of noise. Maybe it's about inviting someone into our space instead of traveling to theirs, or letting them come only when we have the energy without apology or pressure. These are not lesser forms of connection. They are just different, gentler, more aligned with the rhythm of life as it unfolds in later years. We also begin by speaking our truth. So many of us carry these feelings in silence. We don't want to explain why we're staying home. We don't want to admit that the stairs frighten us now or that the noise overwhelms us. But when we speak honestly, we invite understanding. We give our family and friends the chance to meet us where we are, not where they think we should be. And when loved ones understand, they adapt. They show up differently. They bring the visit to us. They keep it short or quiet or centered around the things we still enjoy. They ask instead of assume. They sit beside us in silence if that's what we need. And in doing so, they remind us that connection is still possible, even as everything else is changing. We must also resist the voice inside that says we are no longer needed. That voice, quiet but cruel, creeps in when we start declining invitations. It tells us we're becoming irrelevant, that we're no longer part of the family's heartbeat, that the world is moving on without us. But that is not the truth. Even if we are no longer present at every gathering, even if we are no longer driving or traveling or hosting, our presence still matters. our wisdom, our stories, our essence. They continue to shape the lives of those around us. Sometimes all it takes is one meaningful moment, one conversation, one letter, one shared memory to leave a lasting mark. So instead of asking ourselves, why don't I visit like I used to? We might ask, how do I want to connect now? The answer will be different for each of us. For some, it might be through letters or video calls. For others, it might be through quiet afternoons with one grandchild at a time. And for many, it will include moments of solitude that allow us to feel grounded and whole. There's also a truth that deserves to be said aloud. The modern world is not always built for elders. The pace is fast. The technology changes daily. The cities are crowded, the restaurants noisy, the parking limited, the restrooms hidden in corners. Aging may change the way we connect, but it never takes away our need to be understood, respected, and loved. If this message speaks to your heart, remember, you are not alone on this journey. There's more to explore, more to feel, and more to discover in every season of life. Subscribe to this channel so you don't miss our next video, where we gently open the door to another truth that matters deeply in our later years. Let's walk this path together.